Case 7.
Okay, so here you can sort of appreciate some sort of cellular proliferation or something's going on within the dermis. And when you go to higher power, you can see these kind of tightly packed little like vessels. So it's basically just a collection of vessels. Again, pretty small. So here I'd be thinking of just a hemangioma, and this one I believe is an infantile hemangioma, but admittedly, looking at the stain, I don't know if I could tell for certain based on, like, I don't know if it looks like super crisp collagen for like infant skin. There's lots of skeletal muscle within the deeper dermis.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I'm thinking we must be on like the face. There's lots of little follicles.
Yeah, good. So here we have skin, got granulator, keratin, stratum corneum, hair follicles. So definitely skin, and no solar elastosis that I can see. So doesn't mean for sure they're young, but you know, many adults with face skin going to have at least a little elastosis. So presumably this could be a child. And I mean, based on what the answer says it should be, it probably is a child. Then if we go over to this side, it looks different. This is skin, and now it's something different. There's no, yeah, it's mucosa. There's no granular layer. There is a little bit of keratin on top. Sometimes irritated squamous mucosa will do that. The cells are much more pale and glycogenated, and we don't have adnexal structures anymore. No more hair follicles. So this is lip, right? I don't know. This is not labeled lip. I'm just going to tell you this is lip because it must be, because we have skin with little vellus hairs, and then this is the so-called vermilion zone, the transition zone, and then here's the inner mucosal lining. And as we get further away from the transition or vermilion zone, I don't know, what is the vermilion supposed to be called now? I know some people don't like that name because in darker skin patients, it doesn't actually have a vermilion reddish color like it does in lighter skin patients, but
I'm not sure.
I don't know either. But in any case, very, very, very pale glycogenated, like classic squamous mucosa now. And the fact that skeletal muscle is close is also helpful. Good. So yeah, they took out a whole wedge of lip here probably. And this lesion is probably, I think it is good for infantile hemangioma, like you said. It's made of lots of small, I guess they're like, I would also say they're like almost capillary sized, although some of them admittedly are a little bigger than that. But there are lots of small vessels, and they're packed close together with some larger vessels punctuating them. And those are like feeding vessels, right? Bringing the blood in that then distributes out to all these little tiny channels. And the helpful thing from low power is look at the lobular pattern. Lobule, 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 lobule. I don't know if you can see the cursor on the screen very well, but lobule, another lobule. There's a bunch of small vessels packed into like kind of round or oval lobules, and then those lobules are all packed together into a bigger nodule that kind of fills up the dermis / submucosa, and it sometimes infiltrates. Look at that. It looks like it's infiltrating in between skeletal muscle. Down here we've got another lobule, but even here it retains its lobular shape. So that's a particularly common thing in infantile hemangiomas. Benign vascular malformations can do that too, and sometimes it's hard to tell pediatric type hemangiomas apart from malformations. So the one thing that can help you in infantile hemangiomas, which used to be called cellular hemangioma of infancy, because when they're really early, they can be very, very cellular, much more than this. It kind of depends on when you biopsy or excise them. They can look a little different. The earliest ones look very cellular. As time goes on, they kind of pop open. So what stain would stain an infantile hemangioma?
GLUT1.
GLUT1, right. And remember, GLUT1's a glucose transport molecule. It's going to stain red cells beautifully. Red cells serve as a nice internal control, but the endothelial cells will have strong staining for GLUT1. And pretty much, I think every other vascular lesion that I'm aware of is negative for GLUT1. If I'm wrong and someone out there is watching, please put it in the comments and educate me. Okay, there is the one other thing that could come in the differential here is something that sounds kind of similar to infantile hemangioma, but it's congenital hemangioma. That's rich and niche. Rich is rapidly involuting congenital hemangioma, and niche is non-involuting congenital hemangioma. To me, neither of those have terribly specific microscopic features, I really struggle to make the diagnosis, except that with the history. Rich, I almost never see. I don't know if I've ever seen a case because, as the name implies, they rapidly involute after the patient's born. Therefore, they often don't need surgical management. Non-involuting congenital hemangiomas will have a history of being present since birth. They'll have well-formed vascular channels. They'll be negative for glutes, and they'll be sticking around for a while. And whereas infantile hemangiomas do often regress to some extent, but often, depending on how big they are, they don't always completely regress. So there you go. So this is just labeled in the file as juvenile hemangioma, which actually doesn't help me distinguish. But I would vote this is probably an infantile hemangioma based on what I'm seeing here. But I don't know if glute was done or not. But I'll check on that later and find out. All right, great work. And yeah, just know though that these congenital type of both malformations and hemangiomas, it's not unusual to have them intermingled with the normal tissue, presumably because they developed as the fetus was developing, right? And then they were born with this vascular lesion that's all messed up, whether it's neoplasm or malformation, doesn't really matter, but it all kind of formed as the normal tissue was forming. At least that's my theory as to why this happens. So this is a really great example to get to see. And sometimes, as you guys know, in derm, there's a lot of non-surgical management options, but sometimes even with those, some surgery is needed to get the best cosmetic result. And it's usually really good to have a pediatric dermatologist and also maybe plastic surgery involved as a team approach, especially people that have experience treating these things, because just going straight to excision is not usually the best thing unless there's been some discussion and nuanced discussion of the different options. So that's not my knowledge. That's someone that I used to work with in my former job, who was a pediatric ENT that focused on pediatric vascular lesions. Really amazing ENT, Gresham Richter at UAMS and Arkansas Children's Hospital. And he gave a great lecture once and talked about that especially large ones, they will often need some degree of surgical management, but it's a big question of when exactly to do it and when, how much other treatment to do, medical treatment. So I think it really emphasized to me the importance of a team-based approach. So if you have a patient with one of these in the future, or if you're a parent watching this and your kid has one, go to a big center, especially if it's a large lesion, going to a big center and getting a variety of opinions before making a final decision is a great idea.